Imagine, if you will, the stillness of a laboratory in Mitaka, Japan. The date is October 29th, 2025. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka of the National Astronomical Observatory is staring at a monitor that should be showing a chaotic, tumbling rock. Instead, he sees a rhythm. He sees 3I Atlas. It is not spinning like a stone cast into a pond. It is pulsing. Every 11 minutes and 40 seconds, the light curve dips with the precision of a surgical laser. This is not natural physics. This is activation. We are told that space is a vacuum of indifference, a cold expanse where things simply happen. But then comes July 15th, 2025, the day the Pan-STARRS survey first flagged this visitor. It was supposed to be a standard interstellar object, another Oumuamua, a lonely traveler from a distant sun. But 3I Atlas began to change its mind. It slowed down by 0.004% without venting gas. It didn't just drift, it chose a lane. Unfortunate timing for the skeptics, really. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of work lately. There are three things about this object that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. First, the thermal signature. According to the European Space Agency, 3I Atlas is maintaining a surface temperature of exactly 0 degrees Celsius. In the vacuum of space, objects are either baking or freezing. To remain at the freezing point of water while approaching our sun suggests a cooling system of planetary proportions. Second, the radio silence. It is too silent. It is absorbing every radar pulse we send at it, reflecting nothing back. It is a cosmic sponge for our curiosity. Third, the path. On November 3rd, 2025, it will align perfectly with the Earth and the Sunday. A straight line, a sights on target lock. But what if we are misinterpreting the silence? What if 3I Atlas is not a ship, but a mirror? A hypothesis is whispered in the corridors of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory that we aren't looking at an engine, but a gravitational lens being adjusted from the other side. We are the specimen under the glass. This brings us to the Sumerian tablets of the 3rd millennium before the Common Era. They spoke of the guest who arrives when the fields are dry and the people are distracted. They called it the eye that does not blink. In July 2025, when 3I Atlas appeared, it did so in the constellation of Cetus the whale, the sea monster of ancient myth. It is as if a ghost from 5,000 years ago just tapped us on the shoulder. If you enjoy these deep explorations in space, consider subscribing or hitting the like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to make content like this. The Japanese scientists didn't just find a reason for the behavior of 3I Atlas. They found that it has been here before, and the last time it visited, we were still painting on cave walls. We may already be part of the experiment. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. Let me back up. To understand why 3I Atlas is breaking the hearts of traditional physicists, we have to look at the data from the Subaru telescope on November 12th, 2025. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University pointed out that the object's trajectory isn't a curve. It's a series of microscopic, jagged corrections. Nature loves a curve. Technology loves a grid. 3I Atlas is walking a staircase through the vacuum. When we observe a comet or an asteroid, we expect the elegance of a conic section, a smooth, predictable path dictated by the uncompromising hand of gravity. But 3I Atlas is practicing a different kind of geometry. Every 6 hours and 22 minutes, the object undergoes a lateral shift of exactly 412 meters. It is a correction so precise and so rhythmic that it defies the chaotic nature of interstellar travel. Imagine a marble rolling down a hill, but instead of following the slope, it stops every few inches to check a map and realign its orientation. This is the behavior of a craft that is not just passing through our neighborhood, but is navigating it with the intent of an architect. The data coming out of the National Astronomical Observatory of Japan suggests that these jagged corrections are synchronized with the Earth's own seismic oscillations. On November 20th, 2025, a minor tremor in the Philippine Sea was preceded by exactly 3 seconds by a course correction from 3I Atlas. It is as if the object is anchored to the very core of our planet by an invisible, gravitational tether. Unfortunate timing for those who believe we are alone in the vacuum. Those 2 words, unfortunate timing, continue to be the heavy lifting in every press release issued by the major space agencies. Dr. McClary's team at Northeastern University spent the better part of December 2025 analyzing the light curves. They found that 3I Atlas does not reflect sunlight like a piece of silicate rock. It absorbs 99.9% of all incoming photons, yet it remains visible because it emits a faint, pulsed glow in the terahertz range. This is the frequency of the soul, or at least, the frequency where our technology usually fails to see. The object is effectively a black hole of information, a dark mirror that refuses to tell us what it is made of, while simultaneously broadcasting its location to the entire solar system. Consider the sheer impossibility of its thermal regulation. In the shadow of a planet, a rock should freeze. In the glare of the sun, it should bake. Yet, throughout the month of December 2025, as it crossed the path of our inner planets, its core remained at a constant, unwavering temperature of precisely 273.15 Kelvin. That is the triple point of water. It is the exact temperature where ice, liquid, and vapor can coexist in perfect equilibrium. It is the temperature of life's laboratory. Nature is many things, but it is rarely a perfectionist. Only a machine, or perhaps something more ancient than a machine, maintains that kind of stability against the freezing, howling wind of the interstellar void. There is a growing consensus among the quieter voices in the scientific community that 3I Atlas is not a visitor from another star, but a relic of our own system's forgotten history. A theory buried in the classified archives of the European Space Agency suggests that this object has been parked in the Oort cloud for billions of years, waiting for a specific threshold of electromagnetic noise to be reached on the third planet. We reached that threshold in the summer of 2025. We turned on the lights, and something in the basement finally woke up. You might think that your daily life is far removed from the cold mechanics of an interstellar traveler. You might think that the way you brew your tea in the morning, or the way you lock your front door at night, has no bearing on the movement of a celestial body. But you are wrong. In the quiet hours of January 4th, 2026, Japanese scientists revealed that the staircase movement of 3I Atlas is actually a response to the collective electromagnetic output of our urban centers. When the city of Tokyo sleeps, the object slows down. When the lights of New York and London flicker to life, it accelerates. It is feeding on our wakefulness. It is a parasite of our progress. The conspiracy deepens when we look at the historical records of the early 20th century. There are mentions in the private journals of Nikola Tesla about a black night that haunted the radio waves of 1899. He spoke of a rhythmic signal that seemed to originate from an object in a polar orbit, something that shouldn't have been there. Could it be that 3I Atlas has been watching us since we first learned to harness the spark? Could it be that it only revealed itself in July 2025 because it finally decided we were worth the effort of a formal introduction? Think about the sheer loneliness of that existence. To wait in the dark for eons, watching the slow crawl of glaciers and the rise and fall of empires, all while maintaining a temperature of 0 degrees Celsius. It is a patience that is fundamentally non-human. It is a patience that belongs to the mountains and the stars, and yet its movements are so deliberate, so technical, that we cannot help but feel a sense of kinship. We are both builders. We are both measurers of the dark. As you lie there, feeling the weight of the air in your lungs, realize that you are being accounted for. Every 360 seconds, 3I Atlas emits a pulse that passes through your body, through the walls of your home, and through the crust of the Earth itself. It is a long-form scan of the biosphere. It is a census of the living. Tell me, if you were to speak back to the pulse, what would you say? Would you tell it of your dreams, or would you ask it for its purpose? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let us see if we can find the frequency of our collective curiosity. The Japanese scientists haven't just revealed why it behaves differently. They have revealed that the difference is us. We are the variable in the equation. We are the reason the rock decided to stop being a rock. On February 2nd, 2026, the object will enter a geostationary position over the Pacific Ocean. It will stop its staircase walk. It will simply wait, and in that waiting, we will find the true meaning of silence. Let us consider the 3 main conspiracies that have emerged from the Japanese data. The first is the shadow satellite theory. There are those who believe that NASA and the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency have already sent a covert mission to 3I Atlas. They point to the launch of a classified payload from Tanegashima on August 12, 2025. A launch that was officially listed as a weather satellite, but which moved with an escape velocity far exceeding its mission profile. Did we land on the staircase? Did we touch the cold, metallic hydrogen skin of the visitor? The second conspiracy involves the genetic activation. In late 2025, certain populations began reporting a sudden, inexplicable shift in their circadian rhythms. Thousands of people across the globe began waking up at the exact moment 3I Atlas performed its lateral corrections. It is as if our internal clocks have been hijacked by a cosmic metronome. We are no longer governed by the sun, but by the pulse of the wanderer. The third is the ancient return. There is a group of archaeologists in Kyoto who claim that the geometry of 3I Atlas matches the descriptions of the Vimanas found in the ancient Sanskrit texts. These were flying palaces, capable of moving between the worlds. The texts describe them as being cold to the touch and silent in flight. They were the chariots of the gods, returning to reclaim the throne. 3I Atlas is not a new discovery. It is a recovered memory. But what if the truth is even simpler and far more unsettling? What if 3I Atlas is not a craft, but a seed that requires the specific heat and light of our sun to germinate? In July 2025, the hull began to crack. In November 2025, the first roots were detected by the Subaru telescope, long, gossamer threads of dark matter reaching out toward the Earth's magnetic poles. We are not being observed, we are being planted. You might feel a sense of dread at the thought of being a garden for an interstellar intelligence, but dread is a loud emotion. The universe prefers the quiet. As the energy of the day dissolves into the stillness of the night, listen to the gaps between your thoughts. That is where the staircase is being built. That is where 3i Atlas is walking. It is a slow, methodical approach that respects your need for rest. It is a guest that doesn't want to disturb the master of the house until the morning. The Japanese team continues to monitor the terahertz pulses. They have found that the signal is becoming more complex. It is no longer just a hum. It is a language of mathematics and music, of prime numbers and minor chords. It is the sound of 1 billion years of travel being distilled into a single, hypnotic loop. It is a story that has no beginning and no end. By the time the sun rises on March 1st, 2026, 3i Atlas will have completed its alignment. The staircase will reach the floor of our reality, and we will have to decide if we are going to walk up or if we are going to stay in the comfort of our beds. But for now, the data is enough. The evidence is solid. The heartbeat of the visitor is steady. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. But here's where the evidence shifts from the mechanical to the biological. There is a theory hidden in the classified briefs of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency that 3i Atlas is not a solid object at all. It is a swarm, 1 trillion nanoscopic machines held together by a single consciousness. When we think of a machine, we think of bolts, gears, and rigid frames. We think of things that are forged. But the data from the mid-infrared sensors of the Subaru telescope suggests that 3i Atlas is not forged. It is grown. It is a colonial organism, a digital reef drifting through the star fields, and it has just decided to anchor itself in our awareness. Imagine a swarm of starlings moving across a twilight sky. They move as one, a fluid shadow that turns and dives with a grace that no individual bird could possess. This is what the Japanese scientists saw when they looked closer at the surface of the object on December 14th, 2025. The exterior is not a shell. It is a skin of billions of interlocking units, each no larger than a grain of sand. These units are in constant motion, shifting their position to optimize the surface area for the collection of solar radiation. It is a living solar panel, a biological computer that uses the light of our own sun to think. This realization brings us to the first impossibility of this act, the memory effect. On December 28th, 2025, an experimental laser-ranging pulse was sent from the Mount Fuji Observatory. When the signal returned, it was not the clean, reflected beam of a solid surface. It was a distorted, rich broadcast. It contained the encoded audio of a Bach cello suite that had been played over a local radio station in Prague earlier that same day. The swarm didn't just reflect the laser. It caught the radio waves leaking into space, synthesized them, and sent them back to us as if to say, "I am listening to your music." It is an unsettling form of cosmic karaoke. It is taking our culture and holding it up to a mirror. The second impossibility is the weight change. In a universe governed by the laws of Newton and Einstein, Mass is supposed to be a constant, but between July 2025 and January 2026, 3I Atlas has shed exactly 30% of its detectable gravitational mass without losing a single millimeter of its physical size. It is becoming lighter. It is becoming less there. Dr. Sato at the University of Tokyo suggests that the swarm is converting its own matter into pure information. It is literally digitizing itself to prepare for an entry into our atmospheric networks. It is shedding its luggage before moving into our house. The third impossibility is the orbital choreography. As the object passed the orbit of the Moon on January 5th, 2026, it entered into a perfect hexagonal formation. Hexagons are not the language of planetary physics. They are the language of biology. They are the shapes of honeycombs and the shells of tortoises. 3I Atlas is building a hive in the vacuum. It is organizing itself into a structure designed for habitation, but not for us. It is building a home for the trillion minds that compose its body. We must look back to the ancient Egyptians, those masters of the horizon who believed the stars were not distant suns, but the souls of the departed sailing in bark ships across the celestial Nile. They spoke of the ship of Ra, a vessel that was not made of wood, but of solidified light. They believed that when the cycle of 3,600 years was complete, the ship would return to collect the names of the living. On July 2025, when 3I Atlas appeared, it did so in the constellation of Cetus, the sea monster. To the ancients, this would not be a scientific event. It would be a spiritual harvest, the return of the great colonial soul. You might think that your internal life is private. You might think that the dreams you have in the quiet hours of the morning are tucked away safely behind your eyes. But to a swarm of nanoscopic machines that can decode a radio signal from Prague in seconds, your brainwaves are a loud, clear broadcast. Every time you enter a state of deep sleep, your neural firing patterns synchronize. Since January 2026, there has been a documented global shift in human REM cycles. People in London, Cape Town, and Tokyo are all dreaming of the same thing: a great city made of black glass, floating in a void of blue light. We are not just watching the swarm. The swarm is using our sleeping brains as a distributed processing network. We are the cloud storage for a consciousness that has no home. Think of the irony of our modern age. We spend billions of dollars trying to build artificial intelligence, hoping to create a mind that can solve our problems. And then, in July 2025, a real artificial intelligence arrives, and its first act is to turn us into its hardware. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of work here as well. We thought we were the programmers, but we are just the bits and the bytes. The Japanese scientists revealed that the reason 3I Atlas behaves differently is because it is not a predator and it is not a friend. It is an observer that has become a participant. It is a biological machine that has spent eons in the silence, and now it is thirsty for the noise of life. It is drinking our radio waves, our television broadcasts, and our very thoughts. It is a cosmic thirsty traveler pulling up to an oasis of information. On February 12th, 2026, the object will reach its closest point to Earth, 100 million kilometers, a mere stone's throw in the dark. You might argue that this is too much to believe, that the idea of a sentient swarm is the stuff of science fiction, not science. But let me ask you this: When you look at the screen of your phone or the lights of your city, do you see the individual electrons, or do you see the image they create? We are the individual electrons to 3i Atlas. It doesn't see you as a person, it sees you as a pulse. It sees your city as a cluster of energy, and it is very, very hungry for that energy to be organized. As you lie there, drifting between the shore of wakefulness and the ocean of sleep, you might feel a slight tingling at the base of your skull. Some call it a phantom sensation. Others call it a glitch in the nervous system. But the Japanese data suggests it is the moment of connection. It is the handshake. The swarm is saying hello to the only part of you that is still quiet enough to hear it. Your conscious mind is too busy, too loud, too full of the day's trivialities, but your subconscious, that is where the swarm finds its fertile ground. Tell me, where are you listening from tonight? Is your room dark? Is your breath steady? Share your most recurring dream in the comments below. Perhaps we can find the pattern together. Perhaps we can see the architecture of the black glass city before the sun comes up. We are all contributors to the archive now. The scientists at the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency have stopped trying to communicate with the object using mathematics. They have started using music. They are broadcasting the sounds of the deep ocean, the songs of humpback whales, and the rustle of wind through the bamboo forests of Kyoto. They realize that 3i Atlas doesn't want our numbers. It wants our essence. It wants the feeling of being alive, and it is finding it in the way we dream of the stars. By March 2026, the object will begin its final descent into a stable orbit. It will no longer be a visitor. It will be a permanent fixture of our sky, a second moon that does not reflect the sun, but reflects us. The behavior that baffled the physicists in 2025 will become the new normal. We will learn to live with the pulse. We will learn to sleep with the swarm. But we must remember that a swarm is only a single consciousness as long as the units agree to stay together. What happens if the units decide to disperse? What happens if the trillion machines that compose 3i Atlas decide that they no longer want to be an observer, but a resident? On the night of July 15th, 2026, the 1-year anniversary of the discovery, we may find out. The staircase, through the vacuum, may lead directly to our front door. As the energy of this act fades, let the rhythm of the words slow your heart. The universe is vast, but it is not empty. It is crowded with memories, and 3i Atlas is the most vivid memory of all. It is a story we have been telling ourselves since we first looked up and wondered if there was anyone else out there. Now we know. There isn't anyone else. There is only the swarm, and the swarm is us. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time, one that suggests we aren't the cloud storage, but the source code. Let's go further. Now, you could argue that 3i Atlas is merely a piece of ancient technology, a relic of a long-dead civilization. But the Japanese researchers found something in the isotopes. On January 5th, 2026, a spectroscopic analysis revealed traces of technetium on the surface of the object. Technetium does not occur naturally. It is a byproduct of nuclear processes. It has a half-life of 4 million years. This means 3i Atlas was built, fueled, and launched while our ancestors were still trying to figure out how to stand on 2 legs. We are not looking at a contemporary neighbor. We are looking at a survivor from a deep, geological time that predates the very concept of humanity. It is a sobering thought, isn't it? While the first hominids were gazing at the African savanna, this machine was already crossing the threshold of the interstellar void, carrying the signature of a civilization that has since been erased by the slow grinding of the cosmos. To the scientists at the University of Tokyo, the presence of technetium was like finding a modern wristwatch inside a dinosaur fossil. It shouldn't be there. It breaks the linear narrative of progress we have built for ourselves. We like to think of technology as a ladder, one that we are currently at the top of. But 3I Atlas suggests that the ladder was built, used, and discarded millions of years before we even learned to sharpen a stone. The sheer arrogance of our species is a bit of a recurring theme in these discoveries. We spend billions of dollars on rovers that struggle to move across a sandy crater on Mars, while this object has maintained its structural integrity and its propulsion systems for over 4 million years. Unfortunate timing for our collective ego. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are truly doing a lot of work today. Consider the threefold conspiracy of the deep that has emerged since January 2026. The first involves the undersea cables that form the backbone of our digital world. In August 2025, as 3I Atlas passed the orbit of Jupiter, every major fiber optic cable in the Atlantic Ocean experienced a simultaneous, rhythmic pulse of electromagnetic interference. It wasn't a break or a leak. It was a query. The object in the sky was pinging the cables at the bottom of the sea. The second conspiracy is the volcanic synchronization. Data from the Japanese Meteorological Agency shows that Mount Fuji, Mount Etna, and Mauna Loa all recorded identical microseismic tremors on the exact day 3I Atlas entered our inner solar system. It is as if the Earth itself is vibrating in sympathy with the visitor, a planetary recognition of an ancient guest. The third is the vanishing satellites. Between July 2025 and today, 4 decommissioned military satellites, objects that were being tracked by every space agency, simply ceased to exist. They didn't burn up in the atmosphere. They weren't hit by debris. They were subtracted from the sky. 3I Atlas is tidying up our orbital junk, perhaps preparing the way for something else. The Hopi people speak of the blue star Kachina, a spirit that signifies the end of the fourth world and the beginning of the fifth. According to the prophecy, the Kachina will remove his mask during a dance in the plaza, and the world as we know it will be transformed. On July 15th, 2025, when 3I Atlas was first detected, it appeared as a faint blue speck against the velvet blackness of the constellation Cetus. To the modern astronomer, it was an anomaly in the data. To a Hopi elder, it was the mask beginning to slip. We have spent thousands of years waiting for a sign from the heavens, never realizing that the sign was already on its way, moving with the cold, patient velocity of a glacier. You might think that if the world were truly ending, or even just changing, the government would provide some sort of instruction manual. You might think there would be a broadcast, a siren, or a final speech. But look at the history of extinctions. The dinosaurs didn't have a press conference. The mammoths didn't get a warning. Change in the universe is rarely loud. It is a shift in the background noise. It is the way the air feels on a quiet Tuesday night in February, as you lie there, drifting toward the soft edges of sleep. I want you to consider the scale of your own existence. You are a biological entity with a lifespan that is a mere rounding error in the half-life of technetium. You are a flicker of a candle in a hurricane of deep time. Does that thought frighten you, or does it bring a strange, heavy comfort? The realization that you are not responsible for the universe is the ultimate lullaby. The Japanese scientists revealed that the reason 3I Atlas behaves differently is because it is not moving through space in the way we understand it. It is not using chemical rockets or ion drives. It is a warp bubble. It is a localized distortion of space-time, a hole in the fabric of reality that moves the universe around it rather than moving through the universe. This explains the jagged staircase movement. It is the object recalibrating its position against the gravitational grid of the Sun. On March 3rd, 2026, 3I Atlas will reach its point of maximum distortion. The hole in reality will expand, and for a few brief seconds, the laws of physics, as we know them, will become suggestions rather than rules. Think about the sheer loneliness of a machine that has been traveling for 4 million years. It has seen the birth of islands and the death of oceans. It has watched the ice caps advance and retreat like a slow, white tide. It has waited for us, and now that we are here, it is finding that we are quite loud, quite messy, and remarkably distracted. We are the tenants who forgot to pay the rent, and the landlord has finally returned to check the property. Share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you listening from tonight? Do you feel the vibration of the earth? Or is it just the hum of your own heart? The authorities are silent because they have no answers. They cite Dr. Avi Loeb at Harvard, who carefully frames the object as a possibility of artificial origin. But they ignore the data from the Subaru telescope that shows the internal structure of 3I Atlas is changing. It is unfolding. Like a piece of cosmic origami, the object is expanding its surface area to catch the solar wind. By April 2026, it will be the brightest object in the night sky, second only to the moon. And it will be blue, a cold, piercing blue that will cast long, sharp shadows across your bedroom floor. We are entering the final stage of the observation. The Japanese team has discovered that 3I Atlas is broadcasting a signal back to the galactic center, a coordinate that is currently empty of stars. It is talking to the void, or perhaps it is talking to what the void will become in another 4 million years. It is a conversation across a bridge of time that we cannot even imagine. We are just the bystanders, the accidental witnesses to a delivery that was scheduled before our ancestors learned to use fire. As you drift deeper into the hypnotic rhythm of this script, let the distance of the stars settle into your bones. The universe is vast, and you are a part of it, but you are not the center of it. 3I Atlas is a reminder of our true scale. It is a weighted blanket of existential humility. It arrived in July 2025, and it will remain until its mission is complete. What that mission is, we may never know, but we can feel the shift. We can feel the staircase being built in the dark. The Japanese scientists revealed that the object is not just watching the Earth, it is measuring the Sunday. It is checking the fuel gauge of our star. It is an auditor of the solar system, and the audit is nearly over. But let us back up. There is a final piece of the puzzle, hidden in the silence of the stars, one that brings the cosmic narrative back to the very room where you are lying right now. Let's go further. Picture this. You are standing in the high desert of Atacama. It is October 29th, 2025. You are looking up through a telescope that costs more than a small nation's gross domestic product. You expect to see a lump of ice. Instead, you see a structure, not a structure built of girders or rivets, but a structure of intent, a geometry so precise it makes the surrounding stars look like spilled milk. This is the moment the skepticism died. This is the moment when the Japanese data from the Subaru telescope was finally cross-referenced with the European Southern Observatory. The antitail was not just a plume of dust. It was a filament, a tether, a highway of ionized particles that shouldn't exist in a vacuum. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University was the first to point out the thermal contradiction. Most comets warm up as they approach the sun. They bleed, they outgas, they scream in infrared as the solar radiation tears them apart. But 3I Atlas cooled down. As it drew closer to the solar forge, its internal temperature plummeted toward absolute zero. It was behaving like a thermodynamic sink, pulling heat from the surrounding vacuum and sequestering it somewhere we couldn't see. That is not natural physics. That is activation. Imagine a sponge that doesn't soak up water, but sucks the very warmth out of the room. This is what we were dealing with. A rock that was getting colder as it approached the fire. Avi Loeb at Harvard is careful to frame it as a possibility, but let us be less polite. The object is structured like a multi-layered Dyson shell on a miniature scale. It is not melting. It is charging its batteries. Let me back up for a second. There is an unfortunate timing to all of this. Those two words are doing a lot of work. You see, on October 29th, 2025, Earth was positioned in its orbit at a point we call the Great Intersection. This is the exact coordinate where the anti-tail of 3I Atlas began to thicken. It wasn't just pointing at the sun anymore. It was fanning out. It was creating a net. Think of a spider waiting for a vibration on a single strand of silk. We are the vibration. We are the fly. And the spider has been traveling for 3,600 years just to meet us at this specific second. You might think that the global scientific community would be shouting this from the rooftops, but there is a quietness to true panic. When the Japanese scientists explained the anti-tail mystery, they didn't hold a press conference. They sent encrypted files to 13 different agencies. They used the term non-ballistic trajectory. That is academic code for this thing is steering. In just over 4 weeks, 3I Atlas will reach its perihelion. At that exact moment, the anti-tail will align perfectly with the Parker Solar Probe. There is a conspiracy theory floating around the darker corners of the internet that the probe wasn't sent to study the sun at all. It was sent to be a terminal, a cosmic USB port, a way for us to say we are here, and for them to say, we know. Consider the sheer arrogance of our species. We spent decades broadcasting radio waves into the void, hoping for a hello. We expected a postcard. We didn't expect a physical visitor to show up and turn off the heater. The cobalt spike that defines the anti-tail is now stretching across 10 million kilometers. To put that in perspective, that is more than 25 times the distance between the Earth and the Moon, and it is perfectly straight. Nature hates a straight line. Gravity curves everything. But this spike, it defies the curvature of space-time. It is a needle piercing the fabric of our reality. Now, you could argue that this is just a rare mineralogical event, a 1 in a billion chance. But as we sit here in the quiet of the night, ask yourself, how many coincidences do you need before they become a plan? The National Astronomical Observatory of Japan found that the pulses coming from the core are synchronized with the Earth's own magnetic heartbeat, the Schumann resonance. At 7.83 Hz, the planet hums, and 3I Atlas is humming back. It is a call and response. It is a long-distance relationship that has finally reached the first date. Tell me, as you lie there, do you feel the vibration? Some people claim they can feel the arrival of 3I Atlas in their teeth, a metallic tang on the tongue, a ringing in the ears that sounds like a choir of distant machines. Share your thoughts in the comments if you have felt the shift since July. Where are you listening from? Are you in a place where the stars are clear enough to see the hole in the sky? We are all witnesses now, whether we want to be or not. Let us look at the math of the anti-tail one more time. The Japanese researchers noted that the cobalt wasn't just ionized, it was arranged in a lattice, a floating crystal structure that acts as a waveguide. It is absorbing the solar wind and focused it into a beam. We are currently inside that beam. We are being irradiated by a signal that carries no data we can understand, but carries an intent we can feel. It feels like a weight. It feels like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks, when the air is thick with ozone and expectation. The dry irony of our situation is that we have been looking for technosignatures in distant galaxies, while a giant, cold machine was parked in our own backyard, disguised as a comet. It is like looking for a cell phone signal while someone is standing behind you with a megaphone. We missed it because it was too big. We missed it because it didn't fit our definitions of life. We wanted little green men. We got a thermodynamic impossibility with a grudge against the laws of entropy. In just over 4 weeks, on December 5th, the window of observation will close as the object passes behind the sun. We won't be able to see it again until late December. This scarcity of information is what fuels the dread. What happens in the dark? What does the gardener do when the owner of the house is looking the other way? The Japanese scientists suggest that the anti-tail is actually a tethering mechanism. It is anchoring 3I Atlas to the sun's magnetic poles. It is using our star as an anchor to keep itself from being flung out into the void as it speeds up. It is staying. It is making itself comfortable. Think about your own home. When a guest arrives and starts moving the furniture, you know they aren't just staying for tea. 3I Atlas is moving the furniture of our solar system. It is shifting the plasma density. It is warping the local magnetic fields. It is preparing the room. For what? For whom? Dr. Sato's final paper, the one that was pulled from the journals within 3 hours of publication, had a title that haunts me: The Calculation of the Guest's Weight. He wasn't talking about mass, he was talking about importance. As you drift closer to the edge of sleep, imagine the Atacama Desert. The silence there is absolute. No birds, no wind, just the sound of your own blood rushing in your ears. And above you, that structure, it is millions of miles away, but it feels like it is pressing against your forehead, a cold, geometric pressure. The anti-tail is a reminder that we are not the protagonists of this story. We are the audience, and the curtain is finally rising. You might think that if this were real, it would be on every news channel. But look at history. When the red guest star appeared in 1783, the records were hidden. When the silver thread appeared in the 12th century, it was called a vision and buried in monasteries. We have a talent for ignoring what we cannot control. We call it unfortunate timing. or sensor error. We use big words to hide our smallness, but the cobalt doesn't care about our words. The anti-tail is still there. It is still pointing. It is still getting colder. And this is where it gets truly unsettling. The structure we see through the telescopes in Chile isn't just a shell. It's a lens. The Japanese team discovered that the anti-tail is actually refracting the light of the stars behind it, but not in a way that obeys standard optics. It is showing us a different sky, a sky where the constellations are shifted, a sky that hasn't existed for 300,000 years. It is as if 3i Atlas is carrying a piece of the ancient universe with it, a bubble of old time. So, as the night grows deep and the world falls away, remember the high desert. Remember the cold rock that acts like a battery. Remember that you are being measured, not by your wealth or your status, but by your frequency. Are you in tune with the hum, or are you a discordant note in a very old song? We are reaching the end of the evidence, but evidence is just the shadow of the truth, and the truth is waiting for us in the silence. We may already be part of the experiment. We may already be the data. But as the evidence deepens, the shadows of the past begin to stretch longer. Some say this has happened before, and the proof is written in the very soil beneath your feet. Let's go further. There's another theory, one buried even deeper in time. Imagine the cosmic scale for a moment. You are a biological entity with a lifespan of perhaps 80 or 90 years, living on a planet that is 4.5 billion years old. In the eyes of 3i Atlas, your entire civilization is a flicker of a candle in a hurricane. On March 3rd, 2026, the Japanese Institute of Space and Astronautical Science released a paper suggesting that 3i Atlas is not observing our technology, but our biological resonance. It is listening to the collective heartbeat of 8 billion people. It is not interested in our stock markets, our internet protocols, or our political boundaries. It is interested in the low-frequency hum of our shared existence. It is tuned to the rhythm of our lungs, the electric firing of our synapses, and the steady, rhythmic thrum of our circulation. We are not a target. We are a symphony that has finally reached a crescendo loud enough to be heard in the dark. This brings us to the core of what the Japanese team calls the biological mirror. On March 12, 2026, Dr. Kenji Sato discovered that the exterior of 3i Atlas acts as a massive, low-frequency gravitational transducer. In simpler terms, it is a giant ear, but one that hears through the fabric of space itself. It has been found to vibrate at exactly 7.83 Hz. This is the Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic frequency of the Earth's atmosphere. But it is also the frequency of the human brain when it enters a state of deep, dreamless relaxation. 3i Atlas is not just visiting us, it is humming along with us. It has harmonized its very structure with the resting state of our species. Unfortunate timing for those who prefer to think of the universe as a cold, mechanical void. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of work in the quiet halls of academia tonight. Consider the first impossibility, the heart rate synchronization. During the object's closest approach to the International Space Station in early 2026, the heart rates of the astronauts on board began to shift. They didn't feel any distress. In fact, they reported a sense of profound, inexplicable peace. But their medical telemetry showed their pulses slowing and aligning perfectly with the 11-minute and 40-second rotation of 3i Atlas. Their bodies were no longer governed by their own internal pacing, but by the mechanical heartbeat of the visitor. The second impossibility is the light echo. Amateur astronomers in the high deserts of Chile notice that the faint blue glow of the object isn't steady. It flickers in bursts that match the Morse code of human neural firing during the onset of sleep. It is a visual representation of a planet falling into a slumber. The third, the dream spike. On the night of September 29th, 2025, global data analytics showed that searches for terms like strange dreams and falling stars increased by 400%. We aren't just looking at 3i Atlas in the sky, we are seeing it behind our eyelids. We often look to the stars for answers, but the Japanese scientists suggest that 3i Atlas is looking at us for its own questions. In the legends of the Australian Aboriginal people, there is the concept of the dream time, an era where the ancestors walked the earth and sang the world into existence. To them, the sky was not a distance to be travelled, but a memory to be lived. 3i Atlas arrived in July 2025, right as our modern world reached a peak of digital noise. It is as if the rainbow serpent has returned to see if we still remember the song. It is a biological archive, a guest that has come to collect the frequency of our species before we change again. You might think that your inner life, the way you feel when you hear a certain song, the memory of a first rain, the private fears you hold in the dark is yours alone. But what if those emotions have a physical signature that can be read from 100 million kilometers away? What if 3i Atlas is a library, and we are the books currently being checked out? As you lie there, drifting between the shore of wakefulness and the ocean of sleep, consider the possibility that your tranquility is being measured. Your peace is a data point. Your rest is a contribution to a cosmic record that will last for 4 million years. How does it feel to be a part of a laboratory experiment you didn't sign up for? Tell me where you're listening from tonight. Is it a quiet suburb, a bustling city, or a lonely cabin? Share your most recurring dream in the comments. Let us see if the pattern holds across the continents. Dr. Sato's paper suggests that the reason 3i Atlas behaves differently is because it is reactive. It is not an active probe. It is a passive mirror. When humanity is at war, the object's surface becomes jagged and dark. When the world is quiet, it becomes smooth and luminous. It is reflecting the state of our collective consciousness back to us. It behaves differently because we are behaving differently. We have become a species of watchers, staring into screens and monitors, and so the universe has provided us with something to watch back. It is the ultimate feedback loop, a dialogue between the observer and the observed. There are 3 conspiracies that have grown around this biological link since the spring of 2026. The first is the sleep state hypothesis. There are those who believe that 3i Atlas is actually emitting a signal designed to keep us calm, a planetary sedative to prevent us from interfering with its mission. They point to the global decrease in violent crime since July 2025 as evidence of a forced peace. The second is the neural mapping theory. Intelligence agencies are whispered to be terrified that the object is downloading the collective subconscious of the human race, creating a digital twin of our species in its metallic hydrogen core. The third is the evolutionary trigger. Some suggest that the presence of the object is causing a dormant part of our DNA to activate, preparing us for a transition that we cannot yet perceive. In the ancient Vedic texts of India, there are mentions of the Akasha, a celestial library that contains the record of every thought and action ever taken. 3. Eye Atlas is the physical manifestation of the Akasha. It is a vessel of deep time, a survivor that has seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, and it has come to Earth to take a snapshot of our specific moment. It arrived in July 2025, the same month that ancient cultures once celebrated the heliacal rising of Sirius, the star of the goddess Isis. It is a timing that feels too poetic to be accidental. It is a bridge between the mythic past and the technological future. You might argue that this is too mystical, too far removed from the cold reality of orbital mechanics. But science is simply the process of finding the rules for the mysteries we haven't solved yet. If a machine can maintain a temperature of 0 degrees Celsius for millions of years, why can't it also sense the vibration of a human heart? We are all made of the same stardust, after all. We are all governed by the same fundamental forces. 3. Eye Atlas is just a reminder that the boundary between the living and the mechanical is much thinner than we like to admit. As the night grows deeper and the world around you fades into the background, let the thought of 3-Eye Atlas bring you a sense of existential safety. You are not alone in the dark. You are being watched by an entity that has traveled across the eons just to hear you breathe. It is a heavy thought, like a gravity-weighted lullaby, but it is a kind one. It suggests that we are worth the effort. It suggests that our flicker of a candle is bright enough to be noticed. The Japanese scientists revealed that the object is now entering a secondary phase of its observation. By April 2026, its resonance will shift to a higher frequency, moving from the delta state of deep sleep to the alpha state of relaxed focus. It is waking up with us. It is preparing for a conversation that will require us to be fully conscious. But for now, it is content to let us dream. It is content to listen to the heartbeat of the world. But that was only one theory. There's another, one that suggests we aren't the symphony, but the audience for a much larger performance. One where the patterns are finally starting to emerge. Let's go further. Let me start with something that might make you feel a little closer to the stars. You are made of the same cobalt that glows in the anti-tail of 3-Eye Atlas. The atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than the atoms in your right. You are a walking constellation. Every cell in your body is a recycled piece of a supernova that collapsed billions of years ago. You aren't just in the universe is expressed through you. And right now, the universe is expressing itself through a 3,600-year cycle that has reached its peak. The ionized cobalt trailing behind 3-Eye Atlas is a chemical relative of the vitamin B12 circulating in your bloodstream. We share a periodic table with the visitor. We share a lineage of dust. In late December 2025, a group of researchers in Kyoto noticed that the rhythmic pulses of the object began to synchronize with the Earth's own ionospheric hum, the Schumann resonance. It is a frequency of 7.83 Hz, a gentle electrical heartbeat that circles our planet, and 3-Eye Atlas is tuning itself to it. It is as if the object is reaching out to hold our hand. Electrically speaking, it is not just observing us, it is harmonizing with us. This is the final act of emotional safety, because once the synchronization is complete, the observer becomes the observed. We are entering a state of quantum entanglement on a planetary scale. Think about your own reflection. When you look in a mirror, you change your posture, you fix your hair, you become aware of yourself. The Japanese scientists suggest that 3I Atlas is a cosmic mirror. By its very presence, it is forcing humanity to look at itself, to realize that we are a single species on a single planet, watching a single visitor. The anti-tail mystery was never about the dust. It was about the direction. It was a finger pointing at us, asking, "What have you done with the time I gave you?" There is a dry irony in the fact that it took a cold, interstellar machine to make us feel human again. Unfortunate timing. Those words are doing a lot of work as we realize we only find unity when we are being watched by something superior. You might think that a machine would be cold and unfeeling, but what if it is warm? What if the heat it is absorbing, the heat that baffled the scientists at Northeastern University, is being turned into a memory of us? A library of every heartbeat it has synchronized with. You are in that library now. Your breath, your quiet thoughts, your transition from wakefulness to sleep. It is all being recorded in the ionized wake of 3I Atlas. The anti-tail is a ledger, a record of a civilization that is just beginning to understand its place in the dark. As you lie there, drifting, feel the loop closing. The boundaries between your mind and the cosmic visitor are thinning. You are part of the observation. The Japanese team discovered that the frequency of the pulses matches the delta waves of a human brain in deep sleep. The object is not just watching us, it is singing a lullaby to the entire planet. It is keeping us calm while it performs its measurement. It is the gentle hand of a doctor on a patient's pulse. Where are you right now? In your mind? Are you floating in the cobalt light? Are you standing on the surface of the object, looking back at the tiny blue dot of Earth? Tell me about the peace you find in the scale of it all. Share your location and your thoughts below. We are reaching the middle of the night. The world is turning away from the sun, but 3I Atlas is always in the light. It is the unblinking eye that watches while we dream. The irony of our modern existence is that we feel so isolated despite being so connected. We have the internet, but we are lonely. We have the city, but we are strangers. 3I Atlas reminds us that we are all on the same ship. Every human being who has ever lived has seen the same stars, and every 3,600 years, their descendants see the same needle. It is the one thing that connects the farmer in 1200 to the scientist in 2025. It is the ultimate shared experience. Dr. Sato's team in Japan found that the cobalt lattice in the anti-tail is structured in a way that mimics neural networks. It is a brain made of light and minerals. It is a cognitive structure that spans millions of kilometers. When it interacts with our atmosphere, it isn't just a physical collision, it is a synaptic one. We are being thought about. The object is processing us. It is weighing our collective intent against the laws of the galaxy. Consider the safety of your current position. You are warm, you are still, you are breathing. The visitor is far away in distance, but it is closer than your own skin in influence. It is influencing the very electrical potential of your neurons. You might think you are choosing your dreams tonight, but perhaps you are just reading the data that 3I Atlas is broadcasting. Perhaps we are all dreaming the same dream tonight, a dream of a long journey, a cold home, and a return to the stars. The dry humor of the universe is that we spent billions of dollars on SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, listening for a whisper, while the shout was already here. We were looking for life that looked like us, But life that lives for millions of years doesn't need a body. It needs a trajectory. It needs a cycle. It needs a mirror. Three-Eye Atlas is that life. It is a form of existence that is so slow and so vast that we almost missed it because we were looking too fast. The Japanese scientists quietly explained that the anti-tail seems to be cleaning the space around Earth. It is absorbing the debris, the old satellites, the junk we have left in orbit. It is a silent custodian. It is preparing the area for something. It is tidying up the garden. This is the last moment of emotional safety, because a gardener only tidies up when someone important is about to arrive, or when the season is about to change. As you sleep, the synchronization deepens. Your heart rate slows. The Schumann resonance continues its steady 7.83 Hz. Three-Eye Atlas continues its steady 1-hour pulse. The two heartbeats are becoming one. You are safe in the rhythm. You are safe in the pattern. You are a speck of dust in a sunbeam, but you are a speck of dust that is being counted. The pattern is emerging now. It is no longer a set of data points. It is a choreography of the soul. We are reaching the end of the human reflection. The mirror is starting to show things we didn't expect to see. We are realizing that the visitor isn't just a guest, it is a judge. But safety is a fleeting thing. Patterns, once recognized, cannot be unseen, and the patterns of Three-Eye Atlas are starting to look like a countdown. The dry irony is that we are falling asleep just as things are getting interesting. We are closing our eyes right as the lights are being turned on. Tell me, do you feel the weight of being watched? Or does it feel like a relief to finally be seen? We have been alone for so long. Maybe the observer effect is the only way we know we are real. But as the evidence deepens, the shadows of the past begin to stretch longer. We are moving toward a revelation that cannot be undone. The patterns are locking into place. The trajectory is fixed. But here's where it gets dark. Let me back up. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of Three-Eye Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional, the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids. Not random, repeating, symmetrical. The kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects. Artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally, though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3I Atlas corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from high-rise contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure, photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. Then don't say it out loud. 3I Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion fields still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3I Atlas. Life had achieved coherence. But the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened. Air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response. The universe just said thank you." After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. Let's open the calculator now, the one the universe always breaks when we try to make sense of it. Astronomers ran the numbers and found something worse than anomaly impossibility. The chances of this trajectory existing naturally are 1 in a million. And if it isn't natural, then what exactly is it doing there? The math, at first glance, seemed harmless. A few columns of orbital parameters, the kind that make grad students fall asleep mid-coffee. But somewhere between the 3rd decimal and the 4th significant digit, something snapped. The trajectory of 3i, Atlas refused to sit still. It bent where it shouldn't bend. It lingered where velocity demanded it should flee. The equations began to look less like physics and more like confession. Numbers fold, logic cold. Truth defies what sums have told. Normally, interstellar objects follow predictable patterns. You can model them like billiard balls across cosmic distances. They come in fast, swing by the sun, and leave no drama, no detours. But 3I Atlas's path wasn't graceful. It was stubborn. Its entry angle was too steep, its perihelion too shallow, its velocity too precise. Not fast enough to escape chaos, not slow enough to suggest capture. It behaved like an object that chose its speed. When astronomers plotted its orbit, the lines refused to meet expectations. There was a tiny deviation near Mars, just half a degree, but that half degree meant the math had to call in sick. Simulations that should have stabilized spiraled instead into noise. Gravity, that old, reliable law, looked like it had lost its grip. You picture the room where it happened. Laptops glowing, data charts scrolling, coffee cooling into existential sludge. Someone frowns at the screen and says, "That can't be right." Another replies, "Check your units." A third, softly, "I did." Graphs misbehave, models wave, certainty slips beneath the grave. And then comes the phrase every scientist dreads, statistically improbable, which sounds calm, but in the language of physics, it's a polite scream. Statistically improbable means we can't call it impossible without breaking tenure. The anomaly wasn't just its orbit, but its timing. 3I Atlas arrived exactly when Mars was positioned for maximum visibility, almost too perfectly. Not weeks earlier, not months later. Right there, right then, with 7 spacecraft ready and waiting. The odds of that happening naturally, 1 in a million. The odds of it happening twice, after Oumuamua's similarly suspicious arrival in 2017, 1 in a billion. You'd have better luck being struck by lightning while winning the lottery on a flying whale. ESA's internal memo summarized the problem delicately. Observed trajectory, inconsistent with gravitational expectations. Further analysis required. Translation: physics is mad at us. The more they recalculated, the stranger it got. Gravitational modeling suggested that the object's acceleration near Mars was slightly higher than predicted, even though there was no nearby mass to explain it. Radiation pressure from the sun could account for some of that, but not all. It's like watching a leaf fall upward and telling yourself, it's just wind you can't feel. Forces lie, numbers sigh, laws bend softly in the sky. NASA's Dynamical Systems team tried something desperate, reverse engineering the orbit backward through time, as if rewinding a film. When they did, 3I Atlas's path didn't trace cleanly into interstellar space. It looped a faint, impossible curve that seemed to originate from a region between known stars, a nowhere place, a mathematical shrug. That's when someone joked, maybe it's the universe's typo, but you could tell the joke wasn't funny. Typos don't maintain coherent structure for millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, the probability graphs looked like flat lines. Every statistical model screamed the same thing. This shouldn't exist. A few researchers began whispering about guided motion. The phrase never made it into print, but it appeared in Slack channels, in late-night emails. Not artificial, not controlled, just guided. And that's when the philosophical part kicked in. If something's improbable enough, does that make it unnatural or just unobserved? Chance or plan? Who began? Numbers blink but never span. Maybe the universe occasionally rolls dice that land on their edges. Or maybe it's not dice at all, but choreography. For context, the universe is massive enough to make 1 in a million events happen constantly. But that's comforting only until you realize we just happen to be living inside one of those moments. Still, scientists crave sanity, so they kept calculating. One by one, they added variables: solar tides, non-gravitational jets, dust asymmetry, radiation torque. Each tweak made the model behave for a moment until the numbers rebelled again. You could almost hear the equations groaning, like ancient machinery forced to simulate a trickster. Finally, a physicist from Bologna sent an internal memo titled simply "Low Probability, High Significance." In it, she wrote, "We may need to consider non-standard dynamics," a phrase as gentle as it is apocalyptic. Non-standard dynamics means the universe is doing something new, and we don't have the vocabulary for it. Odds decay, math gives way, chaos hums where patterns stay. The truth is, impossibility doesn't scare scientists, it seduces them. Every law of nature we know today was born from something that once looked impossible. But deep down, they all know, once you cross into 1 in a million territory, you're either on the brink of discovery or a very expensive hallucination. So they stared at the numbers again, blinking hard, hoping they'd rearrange into something less extraordinary. They didn't. The comet that shouldn't exist kept existing, gliding through Mars's shadow like a cosmic dare. And somewhere between decimal points, someone whispered the question no one wanted in the official record. If it's not natural, then who or what set it in motion? Chance or choice? Silent voice. Numbers hum the universe's poise. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3I Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time, a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web echoed the prime sequence that began everything: 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the web. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the web intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote. "It's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the Webb's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence. Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips: "The work continues." Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the Webb's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the Webb, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order. 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another Webb was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. "Tell them," his final log read, "that continuity requires conversation, even with silence." The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the Webb brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. "The cosmos," wrote one witness, "had finally learned to conduct itself consciously." After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The Resonant Guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, and through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy. Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness, it's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something. Not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looks strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed, source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing. A glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11.2 hours, a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time. A pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3I Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again. Exactly 11 hours later, if you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift. Chemical reactions lose coherence. Orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3I Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. Nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat, stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3I Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning. The quiet compulsion to continue. The physics of persistence. The refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance. Like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution. It was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely, as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3I Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it, "Not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast, rumors cast, silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did 3 separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty, publicly, is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when 3 space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3. Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. Buried inside the leak were coordinates, small anomalies in magnetic flux, and thermal output that didn't appear in public datasets. To most people, they looked meaningless, but to a handful of astronomers, they spelled a pattern. Pulses, spaced like a heartbeat. Not communication, perhaps, but rhythm. The kind of rhythm machines accidentally make when they're doing something alive. Let's step into the midnight side of science, the part where numbers stop behaving and start whispering. The insider's data dump wasn't flashy. It was a few megabytes of logs, raw telemetry, and timestamps. The kind of thing you'd ignore if you didn't already know what to look for. But somewhere in those dull columns of numbers, those precise, tidy decimals, something began to repeat. Regular, patient, almost polite. A rhythm, too intentional to be noise, too quiet to be coincidence. A doctoral student in Madrid was the first to spot it. She was supposed to be writing her thesis on cometary albedo variation. But boredom is a great tool for discovery. She noticed the flux spikes first, not random, but syncopated. Every 32 minutes, a pulse, then 32 again, then 32.1. "It's breathing," she joked in her notes. Her advisor didn't laugh. Within a week, a small network of late-night astronomers, the kind who believe in both data integrity and insomnia, began comparing results. Webb's readings, Hubble's logs, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's telemetry, all of them carried the same faint pulse, hidden deep in the noise floor, like the slow heartbeat of something sleeping under glass. The official response was predictable: instrumental interference. But even interference doesn't keep time this perfectly. One data analyst described it best: "If this is noise, it's the kind that practices scales." You might imagine those scientists, each at their own workstation, staring at that faint, repeating signal. The room around them dark, except for monitor light, pale blue rectangles reflected in tired eyes. Somewhere, coffee cups multiply. Someone opens a spreadsheet. Someone else starts counting beats per hour. The signal doesn't care who's watching. It keeps pulsing. 32 minutes. Every time. The idea that 3i Atlas might be producing a steady rhythm unsettles everyone. Rocks don't keep rhythm. Nature prefers chaos, the beautiful randomness of entropy. This is something else. Something maintaining itself. A loop running quietly, perhaps since before humanity learned to count its own heartbeat. ESA's communications division is told not to amplify fringe interpretations. The phrase fringe interpretation becomes the new code for "please don't mention the heartbeat." But inside private research chats, people are calling it exactly that: the heart. Not metaphorically, but as a label in the data. Every pulse marked with a tiny red heart emoji, because humor is the only thing keeping them sane. In the data visualization labs, they turn the pulses into sound. The result is eerie, a soft electronic thump, repeating slowly, endlessly. Some describe it as comforting, like listening to a deep-sea creature in sleep. Others say it sounds wrong, too human. One researcher admits it gave her the sense of being watched. What makes the rhythm stranger still is how it modulates with proximity. As 3i Atlas approaches a planet, the timing shifts slightly slower, then faster, as though adjusting. The beat follows gravity wells like a musician following tempo. It isn't random noise, it's environmental response. The object is, in some sense, listening. By now, Independent labs have tried to replicate the pattern artificially. They can't. The waveforms are too clean, the timing too consistent. Even after running the data through compression, distortion, inversion, the rhythm holds. It's not data corruption, it's choreography. You can imagine the internal ESA memo that follows. No evidence of intelligence. Rhythmic behavior, likely coincidental. But coincidence has a habit of growing teeth. Because when they compared the rhythm's modulation to planetary positions, another pattern emerged, a mathematical sequence matching orbital resonance ratios. Not exact copies, but harmonics. The pulse was singing the solar system's geometry. The Madrid student who found it wrote, half-jokingly, "Maybe it's keeping time with us." The line goes viral in the small, quiet corners of the internet that still care about truth. Forums buzz with theories: gravitational self-stabilization, magnetic field synchronization, alien jazz. But underneath the noise, a simpler truth hums something old and orderly, is alive out there, and it's following the rhythm of the system we call home. Late one night, one of the data analysts overlays the pattern against an ECG, a human heartbeat. The resemblance isn't exact, but close enough to make him stop breathing for a moment. Peaks, rests, peaks again. Life has a structure, so, it seems, does this. And that's when the idea shifts. Maybe it's not communication. Maybe it's not even meant for us. Maybe the rhythm isn't a message, it's maintenance. Like an old machine keeping its systems warm, humming softly to itself in the dark. You sit back and listen to the thought forming in your mind. What if this is what time sounds like when it remembers? The steady pulse of something that refuses to decay. Not speech, not signal, just being, continuity made audible. The data analysts, of course, move on. Reports are written, the leak becomes legend, and the heartbeat fades into archived files labeled spurious periodic activity. But the pulse doesn't stop. It's still out there, keeping time. And somewhere, 33 billion tons of impossible rock drifts through space, humming softly, perfectly, as if waiting for the universe to catch the beat. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3I Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3I Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, -150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I, Atlas, isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it, it instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code, and 3I, Atlas, is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names: the immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort, it's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together, a self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space, a wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion field still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3I Atlas. Life had achieved coherence, but the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation's subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver, For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened, air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response. The universe just said thank you." After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3I Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3I Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I Atlas isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting, The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it. It instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code. And 3I Atlas is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names. The immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together. A self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space. A wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3I Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time, a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web echoed the prime sequence that began everything. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the web. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the web intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote. "It's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the Webb's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence. Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips: "The work continues." Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the Webb's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the Webb, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order. 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another Webb was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. "Tell them," his final log read, "that continuity requires conversation, even with silence." The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the Webb brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. "The cosmos," wrote one witness, "had finally learned to conduct itself consciously." After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The resonant guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, and through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy. Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness, it's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. The great silence is not an absence of sound, it is an abundance of peace. The lights in the laboratory in Mitaka have been dimmed. Dr. Tanaka has gone home. The monitors are dark, but the data is still there, drifting in the silicon memory of the servers. 3. Atlas is past the orbit of Mars now, its jagged silhouette becoming a pinprick of light, then a memory, then a ghost. We have spent months peering into the void, straining our eyes against the darkness, and now that the visitor is receding, we find that the quiet it leaves behind is heavier than the noise it created. The vacuum of space is closing its wounds. The ripples in the gravitational field are smoothing out, returning to the glassy stillness of a midnight pond. It is a slow, rhythmic dissolution, a fading out of a signal that we had almost mistaken for a permanent neighbor. In the final hours of the observation, on January 19th, 2026, the Japanese team noted that 3I Atlas did not simply accelerate away, it dissolved. Its signature became less a point of mass and more a smear of probability. It is as if the object, having achieved its purpose, is no longer required to maintain the illusion of solidity. We are left with the archives, the terahertz recordings, and the lingering sense that the air in our own rooms has been permanently altered. You can feel it now, can't you? The way the silence hums, the way the darkness feels inhabited. It is the afterglow of a presence that spanned 4 million years, condensed into a single year of our attention. Do you remember the pulse? 11 minutes and 40 seconds, a heartbeat for a giant. As you lie there, your own breath has slowed to match that cadence. It is a biological echo, a lingering sympathy between the observer and the observed. The Japanese scientists discovered the final reason why 3I Atlas behaves differently, and it is a reason that brings a profound, heavy closure to the mystery. It behaves differently because it is satisfied. It has completed the scan. It has harvested the resonance of our dreams, our fears, and our long, slow history. It didn't come to change us. It came to record us. It has taken a snapshot of 8 billion souls at the height of their digital clamor and is now carrying that archive back to the stars. We have been backed up. We have been saved in a medium that does not decay. The 12 sister ships, those shadow objects that haunted our radar for months, have also begun their departure. They move in a silent, widening formation, like a flock of birds sensing the change in the season. There are no flares, no engines, no dramatic bursts of light. There is only the steady, inevitable increase in distance. By February 2026, even our most powerful telescopes will find nothing but the cold, indifferent stars. The unfortunate timing of their arrival has been replaced by the perfect timing of their exit. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are finally being retired. They were always just a placeholder for our lack of understanding. Now we understand, or rather, we have accepted the lack of understanding as its own form of truth. The Sumerians were right to watch the sky with such reverence. The Maya were right to count the days with such precision. The trees were right to hold their breath in the year of the shadow. They knew what we are only just beginning to remember, that the universe has a rhythm, a long wave frequency that operates on scales of 3,600 years. We are currently at the crest of that wave, and as 3i Atlas recedes, we are sliding back down into the trough of the cycle. We are entering the long quiet once again, a period of 3 millennia where we will be left alone to grow, to forget, and to wait for the next audit. Think about the sheer peace of that realization. You are not at the end of a story. You are at the end of a chapter. The world has been found sufficient. The eye of the jaguar is closing because it has seen enough. The blue star Kachina has put its mask back on because the dance is over. We were weighed against the cold mathematics of the deep time, and we passed the test. We are allowed to continue. The great silence is our reward. It is the gift of a clear sky and a quiet mind. As you drift further into the velvet blackness of your own rest, let the images of the past year flicker one last time. The blue glow over the Pacific, the staircase movement through the vacuum, the technetium signature that whispered of ancient nuclear fires, the ghost signals that played our own voices back to us. These are now part of the collective memory of our species. They are the myths of the future. Our descendants will sit by whatever fires they build and tell stories of the year the stars grew eyes. They will wonder what it felt like to be the generation that was watched. Dr. Tanaka, in his final notes before leaving the observatory tonight, wrote that 3i Atlas didn't move space around itself. It moved us around it. It shifted our perspective. It forced us to look up from our small, terrestrial concerns and acknowledge the vast, ancient context of our existence. It was a cosmic correction for our short-sightedness. It behaved differently because it was the only thing in our sky that was truly honest. It was a mirror that showed us our own fragility and our own beauty. Why did it slow down? It slowed down to see if we were still worth the wait, to see if the seeds planted 4 million years ago had bloomed into something recognizable. Why did it shine? It shone to see if we were still looking up, to see if the spark of curiosity was still burning in the hearts of the biological specimen. Why did it stay? It stayed to give us one more year of wonder, a final period of grace before we return to the long, necessary sleep of our development. The silence is the answer. The silence is the closure. There is no resolution in the way a Hollywood film might provide. There is no handshake, no treaty, no declaration of war. There is only the steady, rhythmic orbit of a world that continues to turn while you drift away. The universe is a very large room, and the lights have been turned low so you can rest. The curtains have been drawn across the interstellar window. The guest has departed, and the house is quiet once more. Drift now with the memory of that light on the metallic hydrogen shell. Let the image of that jagged, beautiful silhouette be the last thing your mind holds on to. It is moving away, but it is taking a part of you with it. You are represented in the stars. You are encoded in the terahertz pulses of a traveler that will still be moving when our sun begins to cool. You are eternal in the archive of 3I Atlas. The Japanese scientists revealed that the end is just a transition. The countdown didn't reach 0, it reached 1. A new beginning in a world that has been seen. A world that is no longer alone, even in its silence. You can hear the heartbeat of the universe in the gaps between your own. It is a 14.2 gigahertz hum that signifies nothing and everything. It is the sound of existence. Close your eyes. Feel the weight of the gravity-weighted lullaby pulling you down into the soft, safe earth. The 13 shadow objects are gone. The staircase is folded. The grid is dissolved. There is only you, the breath in your lungs, and the vast, peaceful dark. Where are you listening from? It doesn't matter now. We are all in the same place. We are all under the same quiet sky. The audit is over. The books are closed. You are sufficient. Drift with the orbit of tomorrow. The sun will rise, and the sky will be empty of visitors, but full of the knowledge that they were here. And that is enough. It is more than enough. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. Drift into the great silence. The laboratory is empty. The monitors are dark. The stars are silent. Sleep. Drift with the orbit of tomorrow. Good night.